Now, a couple of weeks ago, a young Los Angeles-based journalist uncovered a story about Lamont Peterson using performance-enhancing drugs, and it was a big story. Now, I don't know this guy, but I've been reading his stuff occasionally. He's become a bit of an expert in that area, boxing and performance-enhancing drugs. And I felt for him a little bit, because what happened was some big characters from the boxing and broadcasting and journalistic world stole his story, made it their own, tried to take it forward, and never, ever gave this guy credit. I did. We gave him credit across all of our platforms, all the platforms that I work on. And then, anyway, about 2 weeks after breaking that story about Lamont Peterson, he broke another one about Andre Berto. By this stage, I think people had realised, don't nick this guy's stories. They're his stories. So I thought it was only fair and only decent to reach out and speak to this guy. His name's Gabriel Montoya, and I couldn't get him live because, well, he was going to go and have breakfast with his father, which is, went up in my estimation again, because I would certainly drop live TV and radio for breakfast with my dad any time of the week, to be perfectly honest with you. Anyway, I got Gabriel up on the phone, and the first thing I asked him, and I knew he'd be cagey because he's that kind of journalist, he's a good one. First thing I asked him was, how long had he been working on the two drug stories?
The Lamont Peterson story specifically, just a few weeks, probably a week or so before I broke it. But I've been working on performance-enhancing drugs in the sport probably since around the time Floyd Mayweather brought it up. There's actually a specific moment. I asked him about it here in Los Angeles when they were doing the testing with Mosley. It was the first time that Floyd had gotten the testing approved by an opponent. And I asked Floyd about it, and he was very defensive. He said, well, the Internet hadn't been created. There's a first time for everything. But he wouldn't be specific as to why he started this movement, to the point where he actually got kind of physical with me, put his hands on me, kind of started to move me back a little bit.
Wow.
Or tried to. And it was a very odd moment, and it made me very curious about just what he means when he says take the test. What test was he talking about? What is this issue really about in this sport? And it's taken me down a 2-year road of educating myself on performance-enhancing drugs and learning the politics and the ins and outs of the anti-doping community. Guys like Dick Pound from the WADA founding chairman.
Sure.
Travis Tygart, who won't talk to me, from the United States Anti-Doping Association. Victor Conte, who we all know from the Balco scandal, who's now an anti-doping activist. All these people have helped me, and many more, to educate me on this subject. So when the Peterson story broke, I was kind of just the right guy at the right time, with the right amount of knowledge in his brain.
And I have to say, like all of us journalists, the right amount of contacts. I mean, that's the bottom line. Now, so let me ask you this. As you've opened door after door, and as you've got to know these people, and there's obviously one or two of these people have shunned you, have you been a bit shaken up and disturbed by what you've discovered?
Not really. Victor, I remember the first time I interviewed him a couple years back on my radio show, LeaveItInTheRingRadio.com, and he said, we asked him, how many boxers do you think are cheating in the sport or potentially juicing? And he said 90% of athletes, and that was shocking to me. But the more I've gone along, I think looking at the Berto and the Peterson case, this is our first big one, so we're all kind of learning.
Yeah.
But Victor always says, a lot of anti-doping guys, it's an old joke. These guys failed 2 tests. They failed a drug test and they failed an IQ test.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going in their bodies. They didn't take the responsibility for that, which all athletes have. Every person does. And I think that's what we're learning here. I think in both cases, I don't want to rush to judgment. I'm trying to stay away from editorializing, but I don't think either of these guys were looking to cheat. I think they trusted the people around them, and they were given bad information. In Berto's case, I think he was given bad supplements, and now here we are. So I think through their kind of glorious blunder, boxing is smarter and better off. And we're now kind of in an age of enlightenment for boxing, where we're learning all these different terms and these different tests that work. We're learning which testing group is about transparency and things like that. I think this has been great for the sport. It's terrible for both of them, but I think it's great for us.
Aren't there some differences between the two? Obviously, 2 different substances, but aren't there some developing mitigating circumstances surrounding Berto, or is it as clean cut and straightforward as the Peterson situation?
I don't even think the Peterson one is that straightforward. But
Okay.
what he got caught with, Berto did, was, and this came out, I broke this last night on Boxing Scene, who I now work for as well.
Sure.
He had ultra trace amounts of nandrolone in his system.
Sure.
Now, nandrolone is like a 1997 drug. You know, this is popularized by like bodybuilders. It's for a large.
And it stays in your system forever as well, doesn't it? It stays in your system for 18 months or so.
And that's not even just like a big injection. We're talking, when they say ultra traces, they're measuring in parts per trillion. So imagine a grain of salt, and you smash it, and then you take those particles and you smash them, and then you smash them. One of those things that is left, that byproduct, would be what we're talking about.
Wow, that is nothing.
Microscopic. Yeah, 6 to 18 months in your system, and you're dirty. That's why there's, people try to connect Victor Conte to it. I'm like, Victor would never use nandrolone, people. He was never actually caught by a test.
Yeah.
That's what his gift was.
Cool.
I thought that have to be ridiculous that he would be even connected. He's not.
Yeah, that's what I think. So where do we go from here? Because there have been lots of calls for VADA, the people that were in charge, certainly of the Peterson test, to sort of step up their program and to accept invitations from around the globe and around America to reach out and test more and more boxers. What are you personally calling for?
I think VADA testing is the way to go. I think if USADA did two things, if they became transparent in that we know what tests they're doing, and we get to hear about these results. I mean, they said, well, you know, Margarito or Mayweather and Cotto were tested using this carbon isotope ratio testing, which is what caught Lamont Peterson. It's designed to find synthetic testosterone in your system, as opposed to what everybody else uses, which is the standard TE ratio urine test, which kind of looks for a red flag. Carbon isotope ratio and VADA, the way they use it in their screening process, they're looking for drugs. They're not they're not messing around. You know, I think that's the way to go, to be aggressive like that. I'd like to see those tests that that USADA is claiming that they do CIR. Well, let's see if they're positive or negative. Let's see the results. Let's be more transparent. That's what I like about VADA, is that they're. I was writing about carbon isotope ratio last year, that they were implementing this in their screening process. That's what made them different. The information was out there to beat their tests, and they weren't beaten. And I think that speaks volumes about their effectiveness. You know, USADA's done 3 fights, and VADA's done 3 fights. VADA's caught 2 people out of their 3 fights.
Yep.
USADA, they haven't caught anybody.
Well, you know,
I think it's kind of the way to go.
Yeah, the proof is there. Now, before I let you go, and really, fantastic we've got your time here. I know you're about to go and have some breakfast with your father, and I know you're hungry. He's probably hungry too. Let me ask you this. You've broken 2 big stories, 2 big fighters. Give us a clue. Are you working on anything else at the moment that we can expect coming from you, and hopefully you'll get even more respect for that?
Yes, I would say yes. I'm working on. This is a multi-front war that we're fighting in PEDs. Because I think the next step, I can't say what exactly I'm working on or the timeline. I would say within this year it will break. I'll say that. But I think there's another step to this. There's a level of complicity, in my opinion, with the commissions. I mean, the TE. If you go back and read my article, New York, Nevada, and the 6-to-1 TE ratio problem in boxing, you'll see that in New York and Nevada refuses, or rather New York, their commissioner won't even return my calls to discuss this matter. They're allowed to have 60 or 50% more testosterone in their system in those 2 states than anywhere else in the world. No one will answer the question as to why. I think there's a level of complicity here with the commissions, a politics that's always all about the money, that we need to uncover. So I think when people think that these are 2 big stories and this is the biggest story in boxing, I say this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're just beginning. I'm just beginning to break things. So well, listen, I think by the end of the year, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Gabriel, and we'll get you back on there and we'll keep on giving you the credit. Gabriel Montoya, the man that broke the 2 big recent drug stories. Gabriel, thanks very much for your time.
Man, my pleasure. Anytime, Steve. Thank you. Big fan, man.